Welcome to another edition of Exit Philosophy. He's Mal, I'm Griff. And once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to like, share with your friends, and leave a comment. We really do appreciate the growing audience that we've had as the 26th season approaches. And we will continue to bring you quality broadcasts of Blue Jays commentary uh, every week, not necessarily on the same day, but every week we'll have one. And Mal, before we get into spring training and the games beginning, the Olympics have dominated the television scene the last couple of weeks. What have you been watching?
Um, I tune in and out on a lot of it. I think that's kind of what it's intended to do. But I'm a big hockey guy, so but I've really enjoyed all the hockey games, not just the Canadian games. I really enjoy this best on best format and seeing all the nations that are playing and the quality of the competition. Outside of that, I think I've been taken to the speed skating events. They're pretty exciting. Usually you get the short track stuff too. It's a quick event, or even the longer ones are quick. And it's just I'm kind of fascinated by the speed and the strategy that goes along with it. But other than that, I'll just kind of you can turn it on any time of day, even at night. It's fine for me because I'm not really paying attention that hard. So even the replays are new to me. So and whenever the sport, it's kind of fun. It's a nice break from our traditional sports that we
Yeah.
watch here. That's all. What about you?
Well, when Debbie and I wake up in the morning, she turns on the Olympic coverage, and it's usually curling, and it annoys her a lot that whatever I say about the curling that's going on, the commentators say right after that. She thinks you think you know everything, and well, obviously I do if
I
they're
know.
saying the same thing. But my experience curling, and I don't know why I like it. I played it once in high school. I was the lead for one tournament, and so there was 8 ends, 16 rocks. I was the lead. I think I threw 16 through the house, hit the back wall, and that was the end of my career. So
But it was enough for you to be an expert on the coverage.
I talk a good game.
Yeah, I figured that already.
But yeah, 27 medals in the last games, and we're struggling to make that total. But it's been entertaining from a Canadian aspect. So many fourth place finishes, which used to be what Canada was all about. Just finishing off the podium, and now we're ready to take a place on it. So it's been fun. It's been exciting. But it's time for baseball.
It is time for baseball. The games are about to start.
Yeah, we'll get into that as we record on Friday morning. The games begin on Saturday. But first is the big news out of the Players Association, out of the union. Tony Clark was resigned after a series of scandals, one of them involving, and Tony Clark was the executive director, has been for the last 12 years, I think. And
About that, yeah.
yeah, Michael Weiner was there before, a lawyer, and he was great. He was a great union head, and then he passed away tragically, and he was replaced immediately by Tony Clark. And there's scandals, alleged affair with his sister-in-law who works for the union, plus two misappropriation of funds accusations. I know people, and I have a source or two within the association, because being in the game as long as we have, and Tony Clark was not universally popular within the group. So, was there a whistleblower? More than likely.
Probably.
But what do you think of Bruce Meyer becoming interim executive director, and Matt Nussbaum, who was also there already, and they were already in charge of the negotiation for what will be a vitriolic session come December 1st, when this CBA expires. But what do you think of the whole thing with Tony Clark and then the replacements that they named?
Well, I think we've kind of heard these rumblings for years, particularly on some sort of misappropriation of funds, perhaps. nothing has really come out about it, but obviously this last scandal was the one he couldn't run from. And I've heard the same things. I will say this: my experience with Tony, especially when he first came in, I was quite impressed. I was surprised how, he's a big dude for starters. He's imposing, but he was extremely well spoken and extremely knowledgeable, which I obviously have to be. But he was an impressive man. There's no confident. That being said, I think moving forward, I think by having somebody like this, we're going to find out about Meyer in charge. I don't think this impacts anything as far as what really is going to happen with the negotiations and how this is all going to play out. I think the union is fine and perfectly positioned because the real people doing the negotiations are still there. What it does matter is public perception, PR. Who's going to lead this? And maybe Meyer is perfectly fine in this role, like Michael Weiner ended up being. But it's important how this thing plays out publicly and the pressure that gets put on either side to find a solution. That it does matter. The way you position yourself to the fan base, because going in, this and you've had experience. Nobody's winning here. And I think the players they're going in, I think, is already behind the eight ball. I think fans probably, my feeling is they're siding with the owners more. And as this one plays out, I think it's going to be a tough haul for the players from a public relations standpoint. So I think whoever they hire, that's really important. I believe that.
Yeah, I agree with you that Tony Clark was an impressive figure, 6'7". He would come to spring training and tour the camps. And he was very good in handling the media situations, representing the association, had an impressive Major League Baseball career as a first baseman. But I don't think he was the right guy. And the vast majority of players agree because they said this time we don't. This was from Marcus Semien and this was from Chris Bassett, who are both big shots with the Players Union, saying that we don't want to hurry through the process like we did last time, which means that when Michael Weiner passed away, they went right to Tony Clark, who was his assistant. But should he have been the guy? Former players as union heads don't seem to work out. Remember the NFL Players Association when they had, I forget his name, but he was an Oakland Raiders lineman. And that was the worst union in sports. So it's different. You need somebody with a law background. Bruce Meyer obviously is that guy. He was voted in quickly, unanimously by the 72-man panel of players, 2 from each team, plus 12 on the executive board, I think, and minor league baseball also represented. But for the Blue Jays, it was Dalton Varsho, who took over from Bassett on an interim basis, and Davis Schneider was his assistant. So, but the fact that it was unanimous is a good sign moving forward. I guess they had to make it unanimous, but Bruce Meyer was in charge, if you recall, was in charge of the 22 negotiation, and they turned down the players. They turned down ownership. The union turned down the offer, and they went to the general population of players and they said, screw it, we're going to take it. Now that sort of is a precedent leading into this negotiation. But I agree with you. There's never a winner coming out of this. And I know there's a lot of new ownership since the 94 disastrous strike. But this is a case of the golden goose, where the goose is laying golden eggs and everyone's taking advantage and waiting for the next egg. And then they go, well, it's not coming fast enough. So let's kill the goose, gut him, and then get all the eggs. It turns out they didn't know how eggs are produced. So, But it's not going to work out for either side if there's a work stoppage, because there's too many alternatives on the entertainment landscape, sports entertainment and otherwise. And they need to get something done before this becomes a strike. But
It's not going to happen.
I know that you believe that it is going to be a strike.
Yep.
I don't believe that anything's going to even be close to being done before December 1st. That's when this expires.
The public perception has never been greater for a salary cap, and the owners know that. So this is all about, I mean, there's a lot of issues, of course, and broadcast stuff is big, but the salary cap is what they're looking to obtain. And I think in this climate, there's a lot of support from the public, which I think is asinine, but I think they're going to go for the gold here, so to speak. You know, the golden good. And I don't know if they're smart enough to realize, like you say, they might be killing the golden goose. But I think the owners are really going to press hard, and we'll see how this plays out, because I know the players aren't going to give in. It's the strongest union in sports.
They are. The owners are winning the PR game, but that's on social media, so we don't know in reality where that stands. But social media represents a lot of baseball fans, a lot of fans. But it's not parity. You know, Major League Baseball points to the parity of Major League Baseball and how they don't have repeat winners. And we'll get into that about the last 25 years in terms of going back to the playoffs, going to the World Series. But it's more than, it's not parity. They point to parity, but they're looking at revenue. They're looking at putting a cap, a salary cap that when they expand, they can point to it and say, this is the maximum it's going to cost you per year in salary, and you can compete. And so we're going to charge you X billion dollars for the franchise. And here are the parameters. You know what you're getting into. And that's the only thing that the owners matter about. I mean,
you know, they want to restrict.
I would say that owners on their parity issue are hoping the Dodgers don't win for a third straight year. If the Dodgers win for a straight year, they go, you know, the players will go, look at this. You know, they're spending all this money. They've got deferrals. And there are creative ways to come to an agreement that don't involve a salary cap. And I think regulating the deferrals and that sort of thing. And
that's right. There's other ways.
Revenues. Yeah, there are ways.
Well, it's like I saw Chris Bassett's post about the salary cap and the parity, and I love this post. I agreed with everything it said except for the parity piece, because there is no parity in baseball. There's parity on the winners because they let everybody into the playoffs and it's a crapshoot. So you're going to get
14. They want to go to 14 teams.
Yeah, so you're just going to have
parity.
You have winners in baseball by randomness, not by quality of. We know who the good teams are. You know, we know the Dodgers are going to be good and the Pirates are going to be bad. So that's not there, but there's got to be a different way to solve that problem rather than automatically just go to the salary cap.
I think 8 of the 10 top spending teams made it to the postseason last year with 12 teams involved.
Right.
So what about the bottom 18 teams that didn't make the playoffs? You know, they don't know shit about parity because a lot of them have been, look at the Pirates, look at teams, and you can say they're run poorly at the top level, but we know those people are not run poorly. It's the difference in everything that the players and the owners need to find out, but it's not. I
think there's some fair criticism, like the Pirates don't spend money because they could. They choose not to. There's some valid criticisms. The Tampa Bay Rays can spend more money. If anybody's telling you they can't, they're full of it. But you're correct. There's a distinct advantage that's the Dodgers have compared to the Pirates. You can't deny that.
From among that pool of top 10 spenders, there's going to be a different winner most years, which the 30 owners call parity, you know. But it's winners coming from that group. Anyway, games, Grapefruit League and Cactus League games are beginning on Saturday. So you're probably listening to this. Games have already started. but we both have similar opinions on the significance of these Grapefruit League and Cactus League results in terms of evaluating your team as a fan. What are your thoughts on any significance of the standings in the Grapefruit League?
The standings have zero significance as far as I'm concerned. They're there to be enjoyed. I mean, well, the players don't care if they win or lose, so I don't know how you can put significance into it. I think if there is any significance, which here I'll give you one, it's the depth of some of your minor league guys, because those are the guys that are in the games in the back half for the most part. So you perhaps you could take away some solace if your team is, a little better than another squad because you got a deeper pitching, minor league system, or some quality young players that are getting into games. But I mean, at the end of the day, it means nothing for what's about to happen. It's just about seeing those young guys play, which to me is worth it on its own. That's the beauty of spring. It's just seeing young players come in and play games and getting a chance to put on a major league uniform. But winning and losing will tell you zero towards what's going to happen starting in April.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen it enough. You have.
I agree with you about the depth that your AAA team, the depth that your AA team. These are the guys pitching in the 8th or 9th. And like if you have and we'll get into this about disappointing phenoms, if they're playing the second half of a game, they're facing the same guys they faced the year before in the minors.
For the most part,
their numbers look good,
right?
Yeah. But the thing is that it's changed so much in terms of the superstars traveling on the road at spring training, making bus trips. It used to be that, and I remember when the change was made, there were complaints about the number of starting players that went on a road trip because fans were going to see these guys and they didn't make the trip. And so it was said that you needed 4 or 5 major leaguers in your starting lineup, including the starting pitcher. And it used to be like that for a few years, many years. And now you look and you got guys, you got owners and managers saying, well, he's a major leaguer. Well, he's not.
Right.
He came up for 3 days the year before, and you're calling him a major leaguer.
I think the rule's kind of still there, but just nobody follows it. You do get complaints. I mean, I can remember when I was there, the other team would go, that's not acceptable. That's not the spirit of what we're supposed to be doing. But nobody did anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, the worst offenders are when you play, and it's right across the bay.
The Yankees?
When Tampa to Dunedin is like a 30-minute ride. And you host a game in Dunedin against the Yankees, and nobody's there. There's nobody.
And you know what? I get it though, Griff, because they need to make sure that starting lineup is in Tampa where they're selling tickets.
Yeah.
And
part of the problem in terms of no desire to send real starting players is that the quality of the training complexes has gone up so much that you can get as much work done staying at home and working out. You don't need to go to the games.
And you get your at-bats at home.
Yeah.
You get your live ABs at home.
But there are times, and I remember being on teams like that, being with teams like that with the Expos, and even watching the Blue Jays as a star columnist. Sometimes a team that had
you were a star columnist. There's no question.
Sometimes a team that had a disappointing season the year before, they feel like if they rack up a bunch of spring training wins at the time when they're selling tickets, that the fans will buy into it.
I remember being a young lad with my radio under my pillow late at night in spring, and I used to pick up the Cleveland Indians broadcast, and the legendary Pete Franklin was in spring training, and the Indians were just rolling up positive story and win after win, and he couldn't have been more excited. And then I think they won 50-something games. like yeah. You're right, because they were trying to sell hope and the new quality program. And as a kid, I got excited because I'm like, hey, let's see, the Indians are on fire. Yeah. Let's see what back then. Boy, were they ever bad. But it just made me laugh on how they sold that. And it's just, but it's true. I mean, even the Indians had hope back then. Everybody's selling it and trying to win games in spring. Those teams.
Yeah. As far as the Jays are concerned, all you got to do is look back to 1992, 93, the World Series winning years, and the Jays had a quality team. They had built it up from 85
Yeah.
91. They were competitive. They didn't need spring training wins. And if you look at their Grapefruit League record in 92, 93, they're below 500 both those seasons. So that should tell Blue Jays fans everything they need to know. You don't need to see a bunch of wins. If you focus on individual players, even that can be deceiving. Let's talk about phenoms in spring training that either didn't make the team and fans are going, what the hell is going on? Or made the team and were flamed out in the first month or two. You got any names that come to mind?
Well, the one that I remember the most from being a part of it was Canadian Simon Pond. He hit some serious bombs, and I can remember he just had a great spring. I think he had a couple of great springs actually, but it was that last one he had, and he hit a game-winning bomb in Dunedin. And I remember, and it's like, in fairness, I think Alex just like, we got to take him. I think it was Alex. Anyways, back, I'm trying to remember what year it was. It's like, you couldn't deny him a chance to come with the team, and he did. It didn't last that long, but boy, he was a spring training phenom. He had serious power, and that's the one I remember the most with the Blue Jays. I'll tell you, the one I remember, which made me laugh, was not that long ago. You know, I'm just tuning into games. I'm sure I think he's still playing somewhere. It's Kevin Newman. He was a second base shortstop for the Pirates. I think it was 2021. Griffey hit 600 in spring. I think it was like 20 for 33 or 30. He literally hit 600, and everybody's going nuts about Kevin Newman. And, you know, once the season started, he was Kevin Newman. I think he hit 220 something. Like he does every year. But the dude hit 600 legitimately in the spring, and I'm like, that's even more than exceptional. So that one sticks out. What ones do you got? I mean, I'm sure you go back to your Expo days where there was a lot of guys.
The one with the Blue Jays that I remember that ended up being a confrontation with the player, because I wrote something mean. It wasn't mean spirited. It was just mean. There's a difference. It's John Ford Griffin. He came over prospect from the Yankees.
Big toolsy guy.
Yeah, big toolsy guy. They're promoting the hell out of him, and he just couldn't throw. He was a first baseman, and he couldn't throw. So I wrote a column where I suggested that I had the best throwing arm of any Griffin in camp. And somebody told him about it, and he got a little upset. But
he didn't like that very much.
He didn't like that very much.
What did he say to you?
Oh, he just, did you write that? Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's outstanding.
But the other Expos ones, Jorge Roque, Terry Humphrey, Tom Carroll was a pitcher.
Terry Humphrey. Wow.
Tom Carroll made like 7 or 8 starts or 7 or 8 appearances in spring training, didn't allow a run, maybe allowed 1 hit. So fans were looking for him to break camp. He didn't even break camp. He didn't make it because he was, as we pointed out earlier, he was facing in the 8th and 9th inning.
Did he ever make it?
Scrubs. I think he might have made it with the Reds at some point, but not for a stellar career.
You're right.
Mitch Webster, I think, was a Blue Jay when he had a great spring. I wasn't there at the time, but because he came and he played for the Expos after that, and he was a regular right fielder and center fielder. But I remember in doing the press guide how he had a great spring with the Blue Jays, and I don't remember the details, but I do know he was one of those phenoms that didn't pan out.
Right, that's right.
And then there's Pat Scanlon, Steve Ratzer, right-hand pitcher, nice guy, couldn't pitch, and Bob Pate, who had the classic athlete look. He he needed to be in uniform. He needed to be in a movie somewhere.
Right.
But he couldn't hit. He was an outfielder. He couldn't hit. But yeah, there's spring training.
Just for reference, Tom Carroll. Just for reference, Griff, Tom Carroll did get for the Reds in 74 and 75, and his first year he was quite good. Had a 3.68 ERA over 13 starts, 16 appearances. The second year, not so good, and it was over.
Yeah. So that must have been like 73 or 74 where he...
74 and 75, yeah. Oh, for you guys. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So once again, the Expos missed the boat on...
Made the wrong decision, maybe.
Okay. Spring training is not going to be about the rotation. So we'll get into the Blue Jays rotation. What John Schneider has already said is that he's going to handle it a little bit differently, get them stretched out early. So first time, second time through, they'll be going through the batting order once. But I'm still coming back, and this is one of my pet, not peeve, is the 6-man rotation. I think that Shane Bieber is, when he comes back, everybody goes, well, he's the 5th guy, so that'll be it for Lauer. And then what happens to Barrios? Well, if Barrios is still around and you have 6 in May, because we're suggesting that Bieber might not be ready until May, even though he's on the mound in Dunedin right now.
Everybody's getting excited.
I'm still going to stick with the 6-man. You look at the Dodgers, they got 3 Japanese pitchers in the rotation, if you count Ohtani. And they are already talking about extra days every time through the order. So pitching on the 6th day instead of the 5th day. And if you use off days judiciously, you could make it work and have a modified 6-man. And modified is the adjective that I used all of last summer, but you didn't seem to buy into it, and neither did Pete Walker and John Schneider, so it didn't matter. But yeah, you could have that 6th starter pitch long relief in between his assignments if there's an open day that bumps him.
I think Pete Walker is anticipating a text from Rich Griffin sooner than later on the 6-man rotation as camp gets going here.
Yeah, I broke that maiden. I sent him one already. But not about the 6-man, about something else. So.
Okay. Well, he knows it's coming. So.
Right. I'm just warming up.
Greasing the wheels there. Yeah.
So we talked about Gausman, Cease, Yasavage in that order because you want to separate Gausman and Yasavage with similar repertoires. And then Ponce. I think you like Ponce as a dark horse to do something.
I'm intrigued. Intrigued. I mean, look, I honestly have no idea, but I think it's kind of an interesting signing. I'm just quite, like I said, I'm quite excited to see what he is or isn't. Anyways, you know what I mean? So he's a guy I think you'll watch in spring training just to get familiar with what he brings to the table. You know what I mean? Not necessarily how many outs he gets, but just kind of who he is compared to what he was when he left.
So my point has been that they don't pay $30 million for 3 years to Ponce to come out of the bullpen. He's a starter.
But I think I think you need to keep banging the table on a 6-man rotation because I think it's coming as a standard. Like I said, we've talked about this before, but very few people remember when it was just a 4-man rotation and they pitched full games. Yeah. And then clearly it made sense for them to move. And now it makes sense to just, if you're going to limit your innings and have 100 guys in your available to you, out of your pitching staff where you're, bringing guys up and down every day, it makes a lot of sense.
If you're going to limit your innings and have your starters with max effort on every pitch, that extra day could be important.
Exactly.
Okay, so he went 5 innings and he threw 95 pitches. But what kind of pitches did he throw? I mean, back when they were throwing 4-man rotations and even 5-man rotations, guys would pace themselves. They would change their strategy. Third time through the order would not be the wall that they hit because their max effort and the hitters are now facing them for a third time and have seen that for 2 at bats. No, they used to like work a game.
And hold stuff back.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's why, as you point out, it's coming, because the most pitchers already voiced that they prefer that extra day rest. So why not build it into the system instead of counting on off days, you know?
And you need credit for that. We got to keep reminding people.
I'm gonna find it when that day arrives. I will be taking credit for that. But then that brings the question of, okay, Eric Lauer is classic swingman. He's swingman material. So taking him out of the rotation, not a big deal.
But
when Bieber comes back, and we're saying end of April, early May, maybe early May to mid-May.
That's my prediction. Anyway.
Yeah. Then what happens to Jose Barrios? Will he still be around at the end of spring training is another question.
It is a question, yeah.
I mean, Pablo Lopez with his old team, the Twins, went down. The Twins are expected to be rebuilding. If they can get Barrios with the Blue Jays paying a large chunk of his salary for the next 3 years, that would be an ideal landing spot.
Or there might be a team, Griff, that loses somebody in the spring here, and they want to contend, and maybe they're going to overpay.
Yeah, that's the drum you've been pounding since January 1st, when I said that he wouldn't show up at spring training. But I'm not beginning to. I do agree with you that would be the strategy, because there's really no hurry in trading Barrios right now.
Right.
Because
Bieber
he doesn't start getting paid his major league money till April 15th, right?
Yeah, and right now he's in your rotation, technically.
Yeah. So there's some interesting questions that don't involve young phenoms coming up and breaking through. And we'll get to the bullpen in a minute. But the young phenom that has been set back a couple of years by injury, but had great stuff and had great standing among major league rookies, is Ricky Tiedemann.
Right.
And Ricky Tiedemann, according to Keegan Matheson and everybody down in Florida, is healthy, throwing bullpens, has a great attitude, really wants to do whatever they ask him to do to make the major league team. And why wouldn't you want to make the major league roster? The minimum salary is $740,000 or $750,000.
Pretty good money.
If you're at AAA, you're certainly not making anywhere close to that.
No.
So yeah, there's a new incentive, is the difference between the salary that you get in the majors and the minors. And I mean, that could be anyway, we'll get back to that maybe next week in terms of something that can be sort of worked out in the union negotiations as December 1st approach. We got plenty of time to talk about that.
It's exciting topics, yes.
But bullpen for Ricky Tiedemann, or putting him in the Buffalo rotation and starting him, which do you see happening?
Well, I think they need to decide what Ricky's going to be. And I don't think any of us know for sure the extent of how they feel his arm is going to hold up. If that's a concern, maybe they think it's best he is a reliever and a leverage reliever. But if they still have hopes that he's a starter, I think you have to do that. You want to maximize who he is. So I think if there's still thoughts that he can contribute as a starter, I think he goes to Buffalo and builds himself up and becomes a valuable asset, because they're going to need a Ricky Tiedemann in that rotation, next year and beyond, right? And if you build him up and he's a starter, you can do a lot with him. He can still come into your roster as a reliever at some point in the season. But it gives you options as a starter potentially down the road. You got to do that if you feel he can handle it and not get hurt.
Right. I mean, unless it's a load of crap that he's in 100% physical form right now. You got to, because their teams leave their top prospects in the minor leagues until May, so that they don't get a full year of service, and so it's easy for them to do that with Tiedemann. And to your point, send him down, give him a starting role early in the season. If he responds well by the middle of May, late May, bring him up, put him in the bullpen, because every contending team, every really good team has one or two guys throwing 97 to 101, not in a closing role necessarily, but coming in seventh and eighth when hitters are gripping the bat a little tighter and don't have that looseness, especially young hitters. But every team has one or two of those guys. The Jays have Louis Varland in that role, but if they could have another guy out there doing that, as the season winds down, if you've managed Tiedemann's innings properly in his pitch counts, then he could do maybe not what you Savage did, because we didn't expect him to be thrown into the rotation, but to be a presence more like a David Price was in Tampa in 08.
But he could also be a high leverage lefty, like they, with that kind of stuff, that could be really important because they don't have that. You know what I mean? Like you could see him filling that role too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And going from a reliever, if that became his role in 2026 to a starter, you'll just look at Garrett Crochet and how he went back to that from relief starting and like as a Cy Young guy, a candidate. He's going to be every year. Great stuff, throws hard, and so there's a model to look at for Tiedemann. But the key is he's got to remain healthy.
Yeah, and pitch well.
Yeah, well, and I mean with that stuff, if he's not pitching well, then it becomes a mental thing. You got to work with him, because like I think I could get people out if I had that kind of stuff.
Right. I'd question your mental capabilities. So.
Yeah, thanks. And if he goes to the bullpen, look at the list. I'll read down names and you tell me what people talk about the back end of the bullpen. And they're right. Jeff Hoffman has a lot to prove. But you look at the list of names, major league potential names for opening day. You get Hoffman, Louis Varland, Jimmy Garcia, Tyler Rogers, Braden Fisher, Mason Fluharty, Brendan Little, Tommy Nance, Eric Lauer, Jesse Hahn. Jesse Hahn was brought in, had 31, and he's older than 30, but he's got major league experience, plenty of major league experience. So you've got 10 guys there, and now you're talking Tiedemann in mid-May, late May. Is this room to make trades? Although nobody needs your relievers. They all have their own relievers.
No, that's right. They all got the similar guys. No, I think you're going to see a lot of guys that are there sometimes and back in the Buffalo other times if they have those options, right? I think that's the nature of the beast, and I think you load up on volume. I kind of like their top guys, like they're, the first 5 guys you mentioned. You know what I mean? I think you don't have that legit closer, but I still think Hoffman is a pretty darn good pitcher, and it wasn't a very good year for him, to be honest with you. But overall, I kind of like the top 5 guys that they got. But I think there's some questions of what you're going to do. Like we briefly talked about, like you've got an Angel Bastardo there that they've got to keep for, I think, 90 days.
Yeah, so you got to be on the league. Spent the entire year last year as a Rule 5 on the IL, which is allowed. But then the next year, you've got to shit or get off the pot. It's like you got to bring them up 90 days. That's half a season. So
can you stay on the roster that long? Right? Maybe he can, but he hasn't shown a history of throwing enough strikes. But obviously, they love the stuff, the change-ups, a big pitch. So can they carry a guy like that? And we're going to find out. I think they're going to try. It depends how your first couple months of your season's going.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo is going to have every year. You say Buffalo is going to have a representative pitching staff, and every year guys opt out of their minor league deals at the end of spring training, and then guys get hurt, and guys aren't, they're sent back to Double-A or something. But you got Lazaro Estrada, Chase Lee, Adam Mako. Spencer Miles, I think, is a Rule 5 guy.
Which is kind of interesting, right? So they're not carrying 2 guys.
Yeah. Jorge Alcala or Alcala. He's got plenty of major league experience, and he's the type of guy who will hang around and go down to Buffalo, waiting for that opportunity. You got Yariel Rodriguez that we don't mention, but you can bring him up anytime. Cleared waivers. Nobody wanted to take that contract that he already had. So there's a dark horse, not to make the team on opening day, but to have a role as the season.
He'll be there. He'll be there. Mm-hmm.
And my guy, Gage Stanifer, I love him.
Yeah, I like him too.
He'll probably be in Buffalo, I would imagine.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So now we go to the discussion on the Blue Jays and their history in Japanese baseball, and the history in Japanese baseball overall. When Ichiro came on board in 2001, he was the first Japanese position player to sign. Really? Yeah. There had been 10 pitchers. Yeah.
What year was that?
2001.
When did Matsui come over?
In the mid 2000s.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
So
I didn't realize he was first.
There were 10 pitchers before that, 10 Japanese pitchers. Right. I asked Pat Gillick during BP that first time that Ichiro showed up at Skydome, how many more Japanese players were over there? And Gillick thought about it, and he said, I think there's probably about 9 that could play in the majors.
9, like he knows that specifically. That's cool.
It's now up to 77, including the 10 that came before Ichiro. But only 21 of them are position players, mostly pitchers. We see that. Why do you think position players have had such a harder time than pitchers from Japan?
Wow, that's a good question. I think there's probably just a plethora of American talent or, position player. There's so much to draw from here. They're probably not as in demand. That's all. I think, pitching is such a specialized, and you're always looking for that guy. I think I don't know if it's the talent more than just the demand for the product. There's a lot of guys to choose from over here, in North America and, the Latin countries. So I think you're always searching for pitchers because they're more, there's a bigger need for somebody like that. So the high-end guys, you're always searching for high-end pitchers, and they do have them. But I'm sure there are guys that could play here. In fact, we're going to find out this year, aren't we?
Yeah. And there's 15 Japanese players or Japanese-born players currently on major league rosters. And Kaz Okamoto, playing third base for the Blue Jays, is the franchise 7th Japanese-born player. I'm going to read down the list, and you give me some memories if you have of any of these guys. Well, Yusei Kikuchi is the most recent and probably the most successful. You got Tomo Oka, pitcher. Ryota Igarashi, pitcher. Nori Aoki, outfielder. Mune Kawasaki. I think Nori Aoki.
He was a good player.
Yeah.
For Houston.
Yeah. Did he come over in the Teoscar deal with the Astros?
He must have, because he came from Houston. It was a deal.
Yeah. Then your boy Munenori Kawasaki, and then the worst ever signing from Japan, Shun Yamaguchi.
That was a season.
Shooting star.
I can remember being in spring training. We were in Port Charlotte, and I don't know if you remember, is it Hinasori Takahashi was with us, and they were thinking he might make the team with us. And I can just remember seeing him in Port Charlotte, and I'm sitting there with the media, and I went, Takahashi, more like Takashiri. And he didn't make the team. I know as a PR person, I wasn't supposed to say that, but I trusted the media guys enough. So he was another one we tried to bring north with us, but he didn't make it.
Thank God there was no social media. We all would have been fired.
100%. 100%. It was a hit in the press box, that line.
Do you remember if there was a Japanese player that was brought in by the Hendricks brothers to throw a bullpen? Do you remember him? He came in and he threw a bullpen outside of the clubhouse in Dunedin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Hendricks boys were standing there watching. and
Oh,
he was terrible. His wife was from Quebec. His wife was So he had, I don't know whether that was a connection. It was a connection with Canada, but it turns out that, and this, if we had social media, I would have been condemned by a lot of people. But his father was Japanese and his mother was Brazilian. And so after he threw his bullpen, I said, yeah, he's Jazillion, which are the same odds as him making this team.
oh, Jesus, you come up with that stuff. And we never saw him again.
No, we never saw him again.
Yeah.
Okay, so of the 7 Japanese players, we're assuming that Kikuchi is the best of that group.
He's the most talented.
Yeah,
I'd say the most impactful might have been Munenori, just from
what do you were in that clubhouse? You were.
Oh God, Griff, it was every day. I mean, obviously, we all know about the interview he did with Barry, and Barry lived a long time off that legendary interview, and it was legendary. But he, you know what I remember most about Munenori is how beloved he was, because I'll tell you, back then, there was definitely cliques in the clubhouse. You had the Latin guys, and you had the American guys, and they kept separate from each other, so to speak. I'm not saying in a bad way. It's just kind of what Munenori brought the entire clubhouse together. He literally was the mascot that everybody loved. I mean, Jose loved him to death, and it permeated throughout that clubhouse, and he was so important to the culture in that clubhouse. And there was just some sort of ridiculous thing. He was talking about rice balls. He goes, rice ball every day, rice ball, and his wife would make him rice every day. And he just had such a personality. It reminded me, of our own Kakeru Okamoto for the Ironbacks. Very similar.
Right.
And I'm not joking. You saw what he did to the clubhouse. How he brought everybody together. And
I think I remember in Tampa, John Gibbons, when Mooney was being shipped out, he called a clubhouse meeting, and he had Kawasaki by his side with his arm around his shoulder, to tell the rest of the team that Mooney was leaving.
I'm sure I told you about it. He would do impressions, which is unbelievable. So he would do impressions of the guys on the team. So Gibby pulled him into the meeting at the end of spring training, and he did everybody's batting stance. He did Jose, he did Edwin, and they asked him to do Adam Lind, and he just got up there and he did the stance, and he just goes, oh my God. He just fell asleep at the plate. Just so it broke up the room like you wouldn't believe. Everybody just rolling on the floor. He was the batting stance guy for real in our clubhouse. He just a character.
So the bottom line of this discussion of the 7 Japanese,
where were we going with this?
Is that Kazuma Okamoto has a low bar to clear in terms of becoming one of the top 2. It's you say Kikuchi was really good, was a good clubhouse guy, was good.
Hell of a pitcher.
So they need Okamoto the Blue Jays need Okamoto, not to replace Bo, but to help with the numbers that Bo that are going to be absent because Bo is a New York Met. I mean,
you made the point that they're not very deep in the infield, so I mean, they are relying on him big time. Like he's got to be a key contributor for this game.
I mean, you're talking about him playing third base every day, and then Addison Barger coming in to play third base when Vlad gets a day off as a DH or a first, a DH, or he's hurt or needs a day off. And then Okamoto will go across and play first base. So, he's a very valuable player, because let's go, if somebody is hurt in that infield, and you look at the infielders in camp right now, and you've got Leo Jimenez, and they just claimed a guy, Ben Cowles, off waivers from the Cubs as an infielder, 26.
The new Ernie Clement.
26 years old from Rochester, New York. He is a new Ernie Clement. I don't know if he played hockey or anything, but and
He
how
must
his
be a Bills fan. I'm sure he's a Bills fan.
but that's a shallow infield because nobody wants Davis Schneider on the infield
No.
playing in the seventh, eighth, or ninth inning with a 2-run lead or a 1-run lead. So you need a glove to be a backup infielder, and Leo Jimenez has disappointed more often than he's impressed. And this guy
We haven't
is
seen a lot of them, but sure.
yeah, this guy is 8 years in the minor leagues and has never been in the majors. So I don't know. If I was a career Blue Jays minor league infielder, I'd be pissed off that they reach out to the Cubs and bring in one of their guys who has never played in the majors.
And like you say, like what about Leo? What's his future, right? And what's he looking at if he has one? I'm just trying to quick. I mean, he obviously didn't play a lot last year. Was hurt, but it's his time if he's going to make a roster, right? He was pretty decent the year before. He just hasn't looked all that good when he's got to the major leagues, but he can catch the ball.
Yeah,
there's no question.
And so there's not
he's probably going, where's my fit?
Right. There's not even a lot of young, homegrown middle infielders that are out there in the farm system right now. I mean, you look at the list of infielders that are at spring training, non-roster and roster that aren't the guys that we mentioned. And it's like there's a lot of veteran guys that are being brought in for a look, and they might end up going to Buffalo, but the homegrowns have been more outfielders and pitchers in the recent years.
Right. Well, it's something to watch, that's for sure. Right. If somebody goes down, they're probably going to have to make a move.
Another area to watch for fans, if you're not watching wins and losses, which we're recommending that you don't, is the current outfield situation, lefty versus righty. And I've heard on social media from several people suggesting that the Jays are too left-hand oriented in terms of the outfield. But remember when it used to be they got no left-handed hitters.
It's a problem when you're problem when you're too right-handed. That's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
But fair. Like, I mean, they have a lot of lefties. I mean,
so the lefty hitters, including invitees among outfielders, you got Jesus Sanchez, Dalton Varsho, Addison Barger, who obviously utility third base, right field, Nathan Lucas, and RJ Schreck. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you got a switch hitter in Jonathan Clase. So right-hand hitters, you got Springer, who's going to DH mostly, Schneider. I
did see a comment about Schneider and having to be here because he's right-handed. I just don't think he needs to be on the club. I think you can do better. That's all I'm saying. Like, I get it.
The right-handed guy ahead of Schneider is Miles Straw because he can play.
He's on the team.
He can play for Jesus Sanchez late in the game, and he can fill in against some left-handers, starters. And then my dark horse that you don't like is Eloy Jimenez, an invitee. Sure. Yeah, right-hand hitter. So do you think that the outfield mix as it is now is workable, left and right?
Yeah, I do. Hey, George Springer is still going to play some outfield too. Don't forget.
I think he's still he had a bad start in the outfield last year, but he also had a bad start everywhere last year. And then turned it on, and the healthier he got later in the year, he was just happy at DH. It doesn't mean he can't play the outfield.
In a perfect world, you want balance. You're right, but I think you just have to, you don't have to force the balance. To me, you don't carry David Schneider because he's a right-handed hitter. You know what I mean? He has to have a fit on your squad, and if you need a right-handed hitter, I just think there's might be option. Maybe your boy Eloy is the guy. There's options, and you can do better, in my opinion.
Now, getting on to Major League injury news. I mean, there's injuries all over the place, but for a while there, the hamate bone was a key. And you had Francisco Lindor, Corbin Carroll, Jackson Holiday. And I have a special place in my heart for the hamate bone injury.
You do?
My son Patrick was playing at College of St. Rose as a catcher, and they were doing their fall program. They were getting into fall program. And I was at a hockey draft, an NHL hockey draft, and it was the first round. And it was my turn. The phone rang, and Pat said he broke his hamate bone. And I went, what? And I was trying to figure out who I was going to pick in the first round. This is like a big-time hockey draft.
That's right.
So like while I'm worrying about his hamate bone, I picked Corey Perry of Anaheim in the first round. Are you kidding me? I panicked. And that's why the hamate bone has a special place in my heart.
How did that go for you?
I finished last.
So there's a negative connotation with hamate bones.
Yeah, I start to quiver when I hear hamate bone.
Fair enough.
Ken Griffey Jr., for those who are worried about Lindor and those guys, Ken Griffey Jr. early had a hamate bone replacement or injury or removal, and he had a pretty good career after that. So,
it's okay.
Yeah. Can the Blue Jays, we'll wrap it up in a second, but can the Blue Jays get back to the World Series? Let's study history on that. They did in 93 after they had been to the World Series in 92. There have been six. I did the study this century. So from 2001, Diamondbacks and Yankees to 2025. So that's 50 teams, but two of them we don't know about, Dodgers and Blue Jays. So that's 48 teams. 29 of them, of the 48, have gone back to the playoffs. So that's a foot in the door type scenario. Only 6 of those 29 have gone back to the World Series, but that's understandable. But getting back to the playoffs, I think, is the goal for the Jays. And once that happens, foot in the door, you're in business. 29 have gone, 19 have not made the playoffs the following year. And there's only been 3 seasons where neither team made the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen with the Dodgers this year. But yeah, so what do you think about the history and the Jays making it at least back to the playoffs?
Yeah, I think, I think now more than ever, Griff, it's easier to get back to the playoffs. It's harder to get to the World Series because of the format that's changed over the years, right? 92, 93, you were, that much closer to the World Series once you got to the playoffs. So now it's more of a crapshoot. So actually, if the Dodgers pull this off, that's quite a feat because it's so much randomness in the playoffs. So many teams make it. So I think, that's where the fake parity comes into play that everybody uses for whatever point they're trying to make. But yeah, you have to get back to the playoffs first. And I think both teams have it. Well, the Dodgers certainly do. I don't think that's a surprise. But the Jays have a decent chance to get back to the playoffs. And once you do that, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think that not enough people look at the opening month of last season of 2025 when the Blue Jays looked like they weren't going anywhere. So the entire spring training last year was doom and gloom about, you were happy with the 5-man rotation until you saw Bowden Francis once the season started.
Pitch.
Yeah. And like Max Scherzer made one start and was out. So that was the doom and gloom, is like, how are they going to get even close to the postseason? So it straightened itself out. And the Jays can get back to the postseason. They anticipated, and their starting pitching staff is always reliable in terms of, the front end is always reliable in terms of taking the ball. Yeah.
It has been.
So once you get to the postseason, once you make the playoffs, either as a wild card or a division winner, then anything can happen. So the stats that I cited before of 6 of 29 teams getting back to the World Series, everybody go, well, that would be the Dodgers in this case. Well, the Dodgers, no team has gone back 3 years in a row. So the Dodgers are out by that calculation.
That's statistically impossible, I think.
Anyway, we started with the union and what's wrong with baseball, and we end with the World Series and parity and what's wrong with baseball. So it's perfect.
We're so positive. We're so positive, Chris.
Anyway, we appreciate any updates on your Ironbacks.
Yeah, I mean, we're adding pitchers. We'll have some more announcements soon. Like I said, we're building out our promotional schedule. There's going to be so much more that we're doing this year than last year when we just played baseball. So I think even our manager is going to be impressed with some of the stuff we do. So
I'm looking forward to being able to go out to the party deck where there'll be like birthday parties and wedding parties and whatever, and just greeting and meeting the folks out there. Maybe having them.
I'll try and lock a couple of those up. But definitely some parties of some sort. Yes, for sure.
Anyway, I appreciate it, Mal, and appreciate everyone subscribing and listening. And we will be back at you next week after a week's worth of Grapefruit League games to tell you
more news,
to tell you what you should be looking at. But we enjoy this, and we enjoy the feedback that we get, and keep listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.